Welcome back to Caribou Weather Dude YouTube channel. I'm Joey Only, the Caribou Weather Dude, up here in Wells, British Columbia. GPS says 3,953 feet above sea level. I may have been selling myself 18 feet short over the years, so we're going to say that for now on. 3,953 feet above sea level here in Wells, British Columbia at the Outlaw Mountain Lodge. This channel is my channel to talk about what I will, and often that is weather, and that's the topic of today. Got some new avalanches to report on. Of course, it's really, really cold. It's been very dry in the interior. We know that's going to continue for a while. There's been some flurries still continuing down the coast because of the upper level low sitting down there, well, off the Washington coast there, more or less. A couple hypothermia deaths to report on in British Columbia. And, a little quick look at the forecast, too. Here's the weather news for you right now. Let's go. There it is. This is bad news. My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen.
Get on!
Wow. I'll watch the video later. They dry up in this. It is National Weather Person's Day, and I am your most outspoken weather person you've ever known. A hillbilly prepper up here in the mountains that fears the outside world and fears civilization. That's who you're getting your weather news from, a guy who talks to trees and shit like that. Okay, yes, so hit like, share, subscribe. Tell a friend, most of all, help me grow this channel. If you know like-minded people like you who would benefit from the kind of weather news or entertaining analysis I like to give, do a guy a favor. And for everyone who's given a super today, thank you very much for the super donations. You rock my world. You are why I'm still able to daily produce content right now. I'm holding on as long as I can before I'd like to make it through the winter at least before I have to find some kind of work to get me on through. But you know how it is living in the mountains up here like I do. It's that cold time of year. Been very cold. It's minus 32.8 this morning. The coldest it's been so far this entire winter in Wells. Every day I've come on here and said it's the coldest it's been every day this winter. And guess what? It's really not changing much. We got high pressure establishing itself. Going to be centered kind of over BC. Interior over top of myself here, right? So that's a bummer. And that's the cold weather. You can see that upper level low I was talking about. That's been delivering quite a bit of snow to the south coast in a matter of like convective squalls, 5 and 10 centimeters and things like that, 2 to 4 centimeters depending on the squall and how heavy the individual squalls are and where they've been hitting. We'll talk about that. Got this nice band of snow now. We've been talking about how that was going to break free from that atmospheric river that was hitting California, and there it is, sitting there over Belgrade. What's Belgrade doing there? They took over Belgrade too. So up into Alberta, through Saskatchewan, and then so Justin is seeing some really nasty weather there in Brandon, Manitoba right now. It's looking pretty nasty outside his window, and they've had some heavy snow up through Hank and Wilkie, Saskatchewan. Here they are shoveling their driveway this afternoon from that. So you can always find Justin from Weather Center Manitoba, their YouTube channel here, or you can find them on my show, Meteorological Report, both those guys, every Thursday night at least 7 p.m. Pacific. Usually we start around 6:30 with the live stream. So hit play on tape, and unfortunately it goes a little fast, so we'll try to break it down as we go. So here we go. This low screaming across into Ontario. Nice big storm there hitting to the American East Coast. Clear in BC. High pressure in BC. Now, I think we may have seen our coldest night we're probably going to see in Wells now, and it looks like we have a little bit of inversion happening for us tonight. But if you look at the next bunch of days, so now we're replaying the graphic, and you can see the date here for the expected weather that we're seeing on the graphic. So there's the big low going off into eastern Canada this weekend. You're going to have a nice snow story for you, but look at all Western Canada looking pretty cold, pretty dry, pretty cold. Sunday, Monday, cold, dry, still cold, dry Tuesday, cold, dry. There's some stuff going on out there in the ocean, and we're hoping to see some of this snowfall we're looking at in models yesterday hit into the interior, but right now GFS doesn't seem to want to agree with that. And we look at ECMWF modeling for the next 10 days or so, you see that there really isn't any major precipitation really inbound for BC in the interior especially. Looks like we're going to continue with this dry streak, and we know January was very dry. We talked about that yesterday in a little forecast video that we made, talking about the snowpack, talking about fire season and what it could look like, and saying how, well, January was very, very dry, and especially the inhabited parts of the interior, the lower elevation areas that tend to be where all the towns are. Maybe some of the mountains had okay snowpacks we saw, but really we're looking at a dry trend through January that seems to be continuing now. And this is really bad news that we still aren't seeing. Maybe, halfway through the month we see a change, but we're not seeing anything really significant in terms of precipitation for BC. No, not whatsoever. And when you look at temperature expectations and the long-range modeling, BC seems to stay pretty cold through that period. And if it's cold, we've been talking about this, that probably it's not snowing unless, some moisture is being forced into that cold region and then it's forced to fall because it can't transport itself any further. Sure, you can have snow when it's deeply cold through that mechanism, but generally, we're sitting in a blocking pattern. We're sitting in a blocking pattern that's steering weather away from BC, steering the cold air from the polar regions down towards us, keeping some of that air trapped in our part of the province, our part of the country, I should say. So not much for good news on the precipitation front at all for everybody, or on the temperature front. I mean, it looks like we're going to be a little better for temperature than we've been the last couple of nights, but we're not talking about a major warm-up in any regards. No, we're going to stay likely below seasonal in through this next forecast period that we've been talking about. We do have a warning now for the caribou. Extreme cold warning. Finally, it's only taken them till this long. So there we go. I don't know. We'll see. It seems like we're getting an inversion here in Wells right now. It's minus 21.8. It's slightly warmer than it was last night at this time. If not an inversion tonight, it's coming quite soon, I'm sure. However, I would think if you're in this West Caribou area, extreme cold warning for you, minus 35 to 40 overnight. We've seen Martina. She made the newspaper in Williams Lake today with her famous Puncy Mountain thermometer readings, which are always horrifically cold. So always suffering out there is Martina. Arctic outflow warning. So it's like not only is it cold here, but it's quite windy tonight, Thursday night. And don't take hypothermia for granted, special air quality there to these areas out by Burns Lake and whatnot. The high pressure's keeping the smoke down, not letting you escape it. And I think that's probably the same for McBride area. Yeah, absolutely. And this is that special weather statement for Vancouver. That low pressure lingering to the south of the BC coast is continuing to pump moisture into the region. Late this afternoon, bands of convective flurries expected to or happened over the lower mainland will continue into the overnight periods, sometimes 2 to 4 centimeters, maybe 5 centimeters. Extreme cold warning in southwest Saskatchewan, southeast Alberta, wind chills nearing minus 40 overnight. Then we have this snow story that's happening in Manitoba, mostly now, snowfall warning, which is tracking through the U.S. states, continuing to bring heavy bands of snow over southeastern Saskatchewan and interlake regions of Manitoba Wednesday evening. Light, fluffy snow will rapidly accumulate before tapering off to flurries early Thursday in southern Saskatchewan. We're back to snow squall watches on the Superior Coast. And down here in this very corner of Windsor, what is happening here? Freezing rain for everybody there through Thursday morning. 2 millimeters of ice accretion. Sucks. Weather advisory. Freezing drizzle in that far area near Cornwall in eastern Ontario. Other than that, not too much happening in southern Canada. Lake Sweat. Wind warning 100 kilometers. 100 kilometers an hour on the northwestern side of Nova Scotia. So we'll talk about a couple new graphics I got here from Juna Birchwater on how dry Kamloops was a little later in the episode. But dry is the forecast for the interior of BC. So let's get on with this. 5 new avalanche incidents since I last made the video warning you that there was bad avalanche conditions, which have settled down a little now in BC since last weekend. We had some new snow on top, but 5 new incidents. So this is a lot to talk about. We'll get to it. Squamish Saw responded to a skier involvement at Seagram Lake. A snowboarder triggered a slab, a full burial. He was extracted after 15 to 20 minutes. They, I should say, because we don't know. Unconscious, but breathing. They regained consciousness and left the scene before SAR arrival. Thanks to all parties who helped locate and dig them out. So that's an interesting one. Also on Tuesday, February the 4th, this time we go to the Selkirks, right there by Weimar. Oh, Weimar Mountain. Okay, look where we are on the backside of Whitewater Ski Hill here. So one person was not injured, caught, but not buried. So that's really great news. It doesn't say much about it, but here we have some photos at least, which give us a pretty good picture of what this avalanche looked like, what it did. No real obstacles to smash into. So if you were not buried underneath it, then you maybe had a good chance not getting too injured. Just off of Highway 1. Forever Young, one person involved, third skier in a cooler, triggered a wind slab mid-line, went for a ride and got spat out at the bottom, arresting on top of the debris in the fan with a shoulder injury. Then we got this one at Mount Cain in Vancouver Island. One person partly buried with impaired breathing. Size 2 skier accidental. Fracture line was 50-60 centimeters deep, 100 meters across, ran 150 to 200 meters. Bed surface was very hard crust. Test pit dug at a similar elevation, and ASAP showed a very thin temperature crust over a thin facet of 2 to 3 centimeters, sandwiched between the recent storm slab and existing snowpack. Viewed from the 3 o'clock trees. Very steep there. Yeah, you got to stay out of that steep country, I guess. Although things are probably a little better than they were just after the fresh snowfall over the weekend. And then we have another incident on Mount Cain still. 2 people involved in this one. Size 2 avalanche happened. A party of 3 riding the open face of the West Bull. Second rider cut across the slope below the convex roll and triggered the slide. Rider was pushed through multiple small trees and over rocks. Third rider found the second rider almost fully buried with one arm free, struggling to clear snow from the airway. Compound leg fracture and snowboard torn from feet and never found. 50 centimeters of fresh snow between Friday and Sunday. You are lucky to be alive, man. And it looks a lot like the same terrain, so I'm not sure if that's the same incident or not that's being reported on. But what's really clear is people went out and took risks after Avalanche Canada issued a special statement, after I make a video and trying to scream to the world with what little viewership I have. Avalanche conditions are bad. Someone could have been friggin' killed, and luckily no one was. But please, people, please, when they say stay off that steep terrain, stay off that steep terrain. Luckily we're coming into a pretty stable pattern right now. So I would think if there's a good weekend to consider riding, it's probably going to be this next weekend coming, right? So you got plans. It's going to be cold, but at least snow's had some time to settle and the snowpack's had some time to firm up a little bit. And we're probably going to see continuing improvement as we go into the middle of the month. So I'm not sure about this 15 people froze outside and passed away being reported on what the fuck, Prince George. I'm not sure if that's the case. Word gets around, but what I'm seeing here in the comments is people know of at least 2 people who froze to death. I saw a photo of someone making a fire, hiding underneath like a tarp with a fire in Prince George on the street, and people were commenting on the photo on Facebook like, oh, how funny. And I'm like, man, people are fighting for their friggin' lives out there. With the price of housing, with rents going up, with the lack of affordable housing, and with the job situation being what it is, with mental health being what it is, with addictions being what it is, people find themselves for whatever reason out in the cold, and they don't want to be there. You can't tell me someone wants to be out in the cold. Where would someone go as a dog? I'm not sure if animals are allowed in, says Randy. What are their options for a boy with his dog then? As I said, you can call and ask around. Well, yeah, you're homeless. You can call and ask around, or you end up in the street for whatever reason. If you're high, I don't believe they're allowed in. That's horrific, and it's our fault. As a community, we leave the most vulnerable. And then here's people laughing. Yeah, people froze to death. That's hilarious. Yeah, I take no responsibility for that. I don't care about other human beings. Or here's another person who's trying to shield themselves from emotion, saying, why shame on PG? We can't control the weather. Well, the weather's going to do what it does. So what we're doing for people is not enough. It's not enough, and it's not just Prince George. I don't know how much this has happened. I tried to do a search for homeless deaths this week, and the media never covers it. It happens hundreds of times in Canada through the winters, the worst winters. And you barely hear boo about it. You barely hear. Only heard of two, says Dennis. There, I only heard of one, says someone. So there's obviously been. Why is it Prince George's fault? Someone says there's warming shelters, this and that, but they already told you up there if you're high or, people have barriers that prevent them from being able to access services, or sometimes they're afraid. Sometimes they're afraid of people when choices, consequences, like this is heartless. You people are heartless, and it's no wonder I can't seem to grow a channel here in northern BC, because this is the prevailing attitude. This is a good look into the attitudes that people have. Shame on you people who are laughing. Shame on you who just try to shield yourself from the emotional reality of people freezing to death. And what we're trying to do here in the channel is make sure when these are zombies lost to fentanyl a long time ago. Yeah, like you're some kind of an expert. We're trying to, make sure that when there's a dangerous situation for fire or for avalanches or where people could freeze to death out in the cold, we try to give you this information here. Try our best to help the community, to give back, to share information, to try to prepare people, to try to minimize the danger and the risk to other human beings that live here with us in our country. That's probably why we have people lighting fires in the streets to stay warm. Yeah, I'm going to hit like on that. We heard of one. We seen him a couple days ago. Deepest condolences. Hey, there's someone with a heart. But here's Steve. No one's stopping you from letting them in your house. Yeah, because you can solve everyone's problems. It's up to me to solve all the systemic problems of the society we have created. People chose drugs. Yeah, sometimes they did because they're broken people. You don't understand people. You've never lived in their shoes. You haven't walked a mile. To see a guy like myself who's come into sobriety and been 4.5 years, living a better life, and I'm just. And that was alcohol. I quit, sure, but when I was young, I had a big drug problem as well. And there's several times in my life where I was in real danger of dying, I was homeless. I was there, and now look at me. I own a crappy old building in Wells, and I have a YouTube channel that people don't watch very much. Still, thank you if you do. Were there any individuals you're able to assist? This guy says, well, were you helping anyone, John? Why are you pointing at someone else's, it's ultimately their decision, I can't feel. I'm not allowed to feel other people's suffering. I'm not allowed to have solidarity with other humans. I'm not allowed to be concerned for the well-being of other people. Let's look at this. Hypothermia deaths in British Columbia between 1998 and 2012, 384 people just in that time period. That's a 14-year period. 384 people in British Columbia died from hypothermia or exposure to severe cold. The risks increases with age. We had old Stephen Brown here in Wells. During that time period, he is one of these 384 people. He froze to death in his front yard. People. So check on people. Check on people who've got old buildings that don't. Check on people who are drunk and going to try to walk out in that cold. That's how my cousin Jeremy died. He wasn't homeless. He was a 19-year-old kid who got drunk at the bar. His friend got beat up. He walked him to the hospital, thought he'd take the shortcut home through Mount Pelion and Trenton, and froze to death. So based on the death certificates, we're looking at 25.6 deaths per year in British Columbia as a result of hypothermia. I remember my friend Clara, she's showing concern for other people, and even just sharing this information around could help somebody. That's an act of compassion, just thinking, hey, hello, Prince George community, because this thought made me think, oh, wow, I should talk about this on my show. There's an extreme cold warning going on in our city. Well, there's not actually an extreme cold warning, unfortunately, because of Environment Canada's weird criterias, but it's fucking happening. You're hitting minus 30 at night, and people in the city need your help. So call these numbers if you see people experiencing extreme cold in need of assistance or transport to a shelter. We got to find these people Monday to Sunday, 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. There's the number, 250-617-4794. Outreach Services, 250-562-6262. We appreciate your cooperation and help during these times. And every community has things like this often. If they don't, Ask questions. Make sure it happens. Don't just have people freeze to death on the streets, man. And be aware that not everyone who's dying on the streets is actually homeless. Like I said, my cousin was just walking home drunk. Steve Brown was just sitting on his porch waiting for someone to come pick him up, so he thought. And both those cases, they'd had alcohol in them. So alcohol makes you that much more susceptible, puts you that much higher at risk. Okay, last talk for the day. If you didn't see my latest video on snowpack in BC and how dry January was, and you can tell we're continuing into this trend largely here into February. It's dangerous. Last month was the driest January on record in Kamloops, just 3.9 millimeters, says Juna Birchwater, one of the moderators from our Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers group on Facebook. If you didn't see that video, at the end of this video, one of the options there, one of the videos that says you can follow the next video. If you want, click on the next video. It'll be snowpack fire season discussion, and we'll be talking about this. 2 years ago tied the previous record, sort of. He says, I think 1942, they didn't melt the snow down and just assumed 10-to-1 ratio of snow to water. And snow in Kamloops tends to be closer to 15-to-1 in January because of how dry the snow is. Ratio is 18-to-1 as 6.5 centimeters of snow melted down to a record of 3.6 millimeters of precipitation. In any case, it was one of the driest years since 1896. Last year was the wettest January in over 40 years, and you look what happened. So we will keep on this story of where is the precipitation in BC. Looking at fire season, we'll continue to look at it. I know Mark Ingalls and I will probably develop some more graphics next week when the new mountain snowpack report comes out from the River Forecast Center. Until then, hey, subscribe, hit share, tell a friend. Yeah, please spread the news. Try to help me meet a couple new people here in the channel. Be really, really great. Having trouble growing right now. All the news in the world is got everyone's YouTube eyes onto other things than channels like this. So really appreciate all your support. Really appreciate it. You're keeping me going. And it's really been the viewers, the people at Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers that have got me this far. In terms of all this equipment that I'm using to make this video right now, the subscription to various weather sites and whatnot, things like that. That's all because of what people have given to me to help me continue this channel. So thank you so much, everybody. You've made me who I am today. So feel good about yourself. Okay, that's the show for tonight. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. Bye now.